Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Firm. I'm just here with Normie Lance and Normie Al. We don't have any cool code names or anything like that. But if you want to be cool, go to revitrocketship.com, where you can get on a digital rocket ship that can take you and your firm to the moon. Model like it gets built, have more responsibility, more reward. Basically, get set up so that you mimic construction, so that your drawings produce literally the best things out there, so that you are confident in what you're doing, so that you can focus on those things that matter. Customer service, design, and all that. Go to revitrocketship.com.
ARCAT stands for Architects Catalog, but it also stands for no registration, no signups, and just instant access to thousands of free CAD details, specs, BIM, and product information. It's the easiest way to get resources you need without the hassle. Visit arcat.com, that's ARCAT.com today, and get started, no strings attached. Al, I have some good news today. That should have been my middle name today.
I don't believe you.
I got a lot of good news. Today's episode is titled, Do the New Building Codes Actually Save Money? And oh my goodness, they actually save money.
Sorry, I haven't seen this. I do not believe you. I do not believe you.
Oh, good. Great, then that's
No.
Yay.
Wrong.
Well, I think you're going to have the same a very similar reaction to what I had when I heard this too. So I was in I'm on the permitting committee of our local NAHB chapter, which serves the Denver metro area. And I highly recommend anybody in any other state, go get with your NAHB. It's just a phenomenal group of folks. There's one of the members, Al, is actually, I went and looked him up. I won't say his name. You can look him up if you want to. But I was like, this guy doesn't seem like an architect. Doesn't seem like a builder. Doesn't seem like anything related to that. What our chapter is doing, which is amazing, and I think he works with the state too. Is the state chapter is he's literally a poli-sci major. So they have hired a guy who agrees with, obviously, the agenda of the NAHB, which is like being a builder, all the good stuff, deregulation, trying to streamline things. And this guy they have one person who is dedicated just to policy. He has no building background.
Okay.
But he's learning about it, right? Amazing. So that's where I got the information that we're going to go over on today's show. And what it is if you're watching on the YouTube, the 2024 I-Codes Adoption Kit by the National Association of Home Builders. There's three big parts that we're going to go over today, and then we'll eventually get to. They did a sub-study of the updates from the 2021 IRC International Residential Code to the 2024, and the big three parts are significant changes made in the 2024 I-Codes relative to the 2021 editions. One section covers changes in the IRC for single family, and one covers changes in the IBC. Second bullet point is the cost impacts of adopting the 2024 relative to 2021. That's where we'll get into, holy cow, they actually save money. It's a little ironic. I'm kind of giving you a hint there. And then the last one is NAHB suggested amendments to improve the code's practicality and cost effectiveness. So the big changes to the 2024 IRC code, and without getting into heavy detail, is in Section 401, there's a geotechnical evaluation, and that they moved the existing soil classifications table. It's moved to a more logical location. Kind of boring.
Sure.
They made an update to floor framing and support guards. Prescriptive options area are added for framing, so you can do just more prescription level stuff versus having to probably hire an engineer.
Yep.
Yep. One big one that comes into play with the cost is they changed in section 506, instead of having to do a 10 mil vapor barrier, you can now do 6.
Oh, that's nice.
We used to do 6 all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say in my head, it was still always 6, but
there you go. I was learning stuff today. In section 7, in dry climates, for stucco installations in dry climates, the use of material tested for minimum drainage efficiency over one layer of 60 mil, blah blah blah. Something about stucco stuff, and then in the appendix, existing building and structures. But the significant stuff is
for multifamily.
Yeah. Al, why don't you bullet
okay,
this for us?
Section 9, R13R sprinkler systems for Group R2 buildings. The NFPA 13R system can be used where the highest point of the roof assembly is not more than 45 feet.
So this restores the ability to use NFPA-R systems. Those are cheaper than D. So just
nice.
So everybody knows, that's good, yep.
Electrical vehicle charging stations, at least one charging station up to 5% shall be provided. This change would result in an equal number of accessible EV spaces and accessibility standard spaces needed to be provided. Okay, so it just kind of links that up. Laundry equipment, not that big of a deal. Additions, the accessibility provision for existing buildings are modified, so only the number of dwellings or sleeping units added to the existing buildings are required to meet the accessibility requirements. Okay, so let's say you are adding on to a building and it has 8 multifamily units and you are adding 4 of them, then the accessibility provisions are modified, so only the number of dwelling units added are required. Yep, so the 4. Makes complete sense. Totally. So when you're redoing some of these buildings, it's super, super difficult.
Super difficult to retrofit. So that was a good one.
And too, like, yeah, okay, makes sense. What's this fence? Roof, attic, foundation, and underfloor vents in ignition resistance class 1 and 2 construction must either be listed as a vent product tested. Okay, just
yeah. On some of them, it's just like exactly like how are we gonna make this fun content for everybody? Here's how. So then the second part of this, before we'll get into the suggested amendments too. I'll just give you a hint. Is the second big bullet point is the cost adoption, right? So then there's a 2024 IRC cost study, and if you want to look for it. You could even just Google estimated costs of 2024 IRC changes. Don't worry, in this 36-page document, I use a little chat GPT to help us out. And the last thing before we get into that is that then there's a bunch of suggested amendments that they make to it. The big one I want to talk about is fire sprinkler requirements for, this is from them, from the NAHB. Fire sprinkler requirements for 1 and 2 family homes continue to be part of the International Residential Code, despite significant consumer resistance and debunked claims to their necessity.
I love
claims.
That.
Yeah,
I love that.
NAHB's fire sprinkler resource page remains an excellent resource for removing those requirements. And so if you're ever looking for like why they should be debunked, if you're trying to fight against this craziness of sprinkling 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses, there's like a lot of cities that are moving to like this single staircase stuff. Have you seen this? So like people, we're finally reaching the limit. I have said this ad nauseum, like with the insulation prescriptions. At what point, like, are we just gonna keep increasing it? Are we going to get to like R100? There has to be a limit. I feel like as a completionist, I'm like, in my autistic brain, there has to be a limit. And sure enough, they finally found their limit. So,
and before we go to that,
yeah,
going back, this concept, I saw an image on Twitter, and it was studies say, research proves, blah, 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 statements like that. And the theme of this was, none of that matters if an expert tells you the opposite. So this is what I'm getting at, is that I'm looking at just through this fire sprinkler information. Because I think that we've over sprinklered, society right now. And I could go to city council, I could go to the planning and zoning commission, all that other stuff, and essentially maybe even prove that in single family houses, we don't need it, right? They're just going to look at the fire chief. What does fire chief say?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it does. I don't want to be a downer. I wonder.
No, you're so right. It's okay. Hey, I've already, as a huge Marcus Aurelius, they call me Marcus Aurelius Jr., frankly.
No one does. So where'd that come from? Where did that come from? I don't know how I got on there.
I'm so stoic that I just accept it. We're gonna have to sprinkler this stuff. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. When I go to build my new house in Boulder County in a couple years, or Larimer, who knows where I build it? Yeah. And I have my little farm. You might hear me complain, and then you can say that's not very Marcus Aurelius Jr.
I spent $15,000 more for no reason.
Yeah, I don't know.
My house is an A-frame made of metal. This ain't gonna burn down.
You can call me Karen.
Yeah.
At that point, I can be Karen. Yeah.
Just depending on the situation.
This one quote, I have to read this.
Yeah, I interrupted.
NAHB continues. This is from their fire sprinkler, whatever I called it. What is the title of it? Just fire sprinklers for NAHB. NAHB continues to counter emotional arguments with reason, facts, and common sense, as we did in an article that Fire Protection Engineering asked us to write. This is such a good resource, yeah.
Honestly, Lance, should we make a project folder, and should it be in current or in admin? And what I want it to be, maybe it's NHAB, and then we have in there just one called code or resources, and then we can break down a folder for like fire, for code stuff. Because what's interesting here is like, I'm going to go talking to Boulder County next Wednesday. Over the weekend, I have 175 pages to read of what they're doing. And I just feel like we might get more and more into this. And instead of us remembering like where this is, we should just have a folder structure. So like if anyone's going to talk about fire, we got it. If anyone's going to talk about these code changes and how they cost money, we got it. So
well, what I'm going to bring up actually is I'm going to bring up the changes to staff on Thursday. That's my next lean.
Yep.
Yeah, let's get to the juicy parts. I'm so excited for Al to see how much money he's saving. It's ridiculous. So I, of course, fed ChatGPT the PDF of estimated costs of 2024 IRC changes. I said, read this, give me a summary. And it gives me a summary. And the key areas here, I've got to put up my screen, of cost savings in the new 2024 IRC compared to the 2021 and all previous models is the change, the fact that we allow the use of a 6 mil polyethylene vapor barrier instead of a more expensive 10 mil vapor barrier, and this would be for like crawl spaces for folks who don't do a lot of residential. The savings it ranges from $472 to $957 per house.
Yeah.
Yay. Result, biggest consistent cost reduction. Yep, whatever. Second one, water resistant. So they break it down a little better here. The water resistant barrier for stucco and dry climates change. This modifies the water resistant barrier requirements for stucco, allowing a more drainable water resistant barrier instead of vertical furring strips, which are more labor intensive, obviously. Savings up to $1,200 per home. Good job.
Okay.
Deck and stairway requirements. The change, it allows a narrower 36-inch landing for exterior stairways with 3 or fewer risers when not serving an required egress door. $798 saved. The soil classification. This incorporates now USDA soil classification, reducing the need for expensive geotechnical reports in many cases. That's pretty huge, actually.
Yeah.
I think their savings is off here.
Yes,
$946 because soils tests in Colorado right now are like $2,500 minimum.
I was going to say at least $1,500 to $2,500. So
that's huge. And then there's probably the time factor in here too. I would think like that's probably more than even a couple $1,000. It's maybe like $4,000 or $5,000 when you include interest and all that stuff of carrying the property, because sometimes our soils engineers are like 4 to 6 weeks out before they can even touch it, and then it's 4 to 6 weeks to process the whole thing. So like it just can delay a project. As a matter of fact, we're doing this little addition right now in Westminster or something, North Denver, and that's what happened. They said there was a insulation one, but maybe they didn't talk about it. I've heard so. I'll have to ask him. The fifth one, deflection requirements for guards and handrails. So this excludes guards and handrails from live load deflection calculations, eliminating the need for engineering analysis. $402. Probably more than that, actually. Number 6, return air openings. Allows HVAC return air from bathrooms, closets, and mechanical rooms. Previously prohibited. Wow, you couldn't do return air from a bathroom anymore. I have no idea about that. That's
Wait.
shocking.
Wow.
That's pretty huge, actually. That's kind of giant. This could reduce duct lengths and complexity, but actual cost impact varies on design choices. That's good to know. Very good to know. The other one was, I'm going to ask it here because I think it missed it. Wasn't insulation in some climate zones reduced for attics also? Let's see what it says. Yes, you're right. Perfect. Here we go. Yeah, specifically the requirement. So this is for Colorado architects. Actually, there's other ones too, but you just go look at your own. I'm pretty sure this was brought up in our meeting that we had, our committee meeting, that in Colorado we are now reduced from R60 to R38. What climate zone? Will you look up what climate zone?
We're 5.
What about climate zone 5? R49 remains a standard. I thought we had R60.
We are in R60.
All right, ChatGPT, you're falling short.
What are you doing?
A little bit. Or maybe, yeah, anyway. In climate zone 2 and 3, they reduced the ceiling insulation from 49 to 38. That's pretty huge, actually, I think. And then supposedly we went from climate zone, we went from 60 to 49 here. So there you go, Al. Can you believe it? What they had to do is, just in case it wasn't clear, they had to go too far in one direction.
Oh.
And then course correct.
Okay, that kind of makes sense, unless. Nope, it doesn't make sense. Just here's the other thing that I'm fighting against. So, when something gets implemented, and then a couple years go by, that's the baseline, right? Mm-hmm. That's the baseline. And here's what I'm going to be fighting against Boulder County is that a lot of people and a lot of suggestions, this is all about how many square footage you can have in Boulder County.
Yep.
Right? A lot of suggestions from the residents are coming as very, very reasonable, right? They're like, oh, instead of limiting people this much, we could only limit people this much, right? And the point I want to make is, I don't accept the premise that where we're at now is reasonable. You know, like where we've been at for the past 5-10 years, I don't think that is reasonable.
Yeah.
I do have some suggestions that would be reasonable based on you're going down this path. But I almost want to reset and say, if you have 35 acres, like a base house of 5K shouldn't even be talked about as an issue of too large. Like, what are we talking about?
Exactly.
And it's not like everyone can afford that or is going to do that. Like, people might build farmhouses. But the fact that you are alarmed or concerned, even honestly, it all depends on form, style, and function. A 10K house on 35 acres? Like in Malibu, a 5-acre lot, you can do 10K. Like, what is...
Speaking of California, they're requiring all of the fire victims to install solar panels. So that's pretty neat.
That's... Sure.
Yeah.
Gotta be sustainable too.
Yeah. All right. This one's a short and sweet one. We'll see you next week. If you like this episode, you're watching on the YouTube, like, subscribe, leave us a positive comment. Somebody else try to step up and take Jason Altman's throne for the all-time awesomest commenter. If you're listening on iTunes, 5-star reviews. See you next week.